I'm 65 years old, and I keep thinking we got to do something for the young people to take over. And each one of these young people, they have a story about themselves and their life, their challenges, and their ways to overcome trauma, overcome situations in their life. And these are their real life experiences and their stories. And I want to turn it over to the young people with the intention, not only this panel, but as we move forward tomorrow and Friday, we come up with the action plan. Somewhere along the way, we're going to have a Warrior Spirit Youth Conference here on Navajo Nation, just for young people, elementary school, junior high, high school students, college students. Let them talk, let them explain their situation. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Miss Alyssa Ashley. I'm sorry.
So yad everyone she'e debeth lejeune shle ki ani bashishchin tore jine da she'e tabahan da shenele tonen es deze de nasha adosh madosh je Veronica do Ambrose Ashley Willia, and they're right over there. Shadeja A Anya right here. Auto Shade Amber is back there. So I'm supposed to be the moderator, but I think Ken said everything already. But like he said, I'll be introducing these guys. We have here, of course, Anya, Ashley, Marlon White, that's Ken's son, and then Richard Tellywood. They'll share a bit about their story about overcoming historical or intergenerational trauma in their own lives. And if you guys can share some recommendations with the audience, maybe for the next generation, and healing ways, and how you overcame some adversity in your own lives, that would be good. So we'll start from here. Ladies first, Anya, and then we can go that way. So, yeah.
Yat She'e ani Ashley nishiat the Belgian nishla ki ani bashchi torich ni a dash che tabaha a dashanella akut ego dina adzana nishla ado tonanas dize dana sha Shada A Alyssa Ashley Willia ado Shada A Amber Ashley Willia, she's in the background over there. Shema A Veronica Ashley do Shaja A Ambrose Ashley, and I am very proud to say that my family here is here in the audience. I had dragged my father, also my uncle, my mother, and my two sisters, my partner, as well as my two aunties. And my two aunties have traveled a few hours to be here. And so I guess I just want to first say that I introduced myself in Navajo, and I was taught as a young age to really acknowledge my clanship, just because I am representing myself as a young Navajo woman, and I'm letting the holy people know that I'm here. I'm still alive. I'm walking around. And I also bring up my family just because I would not be here without my family. I would not be here without my Shema, nor Shaja'a, my mother or my father, nor my sisters. As a family, we've come so far in our journey of healing. And it takes a lot of strength, courage, honesty, trust, forgiveness, betrayal, and love and compassion to really dig deep and really acknowledge your kinship, really acknowledge your family, your relatives, your friends, your community. And so once I found out that this conference was going to be here in Deneta, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to tell my family, I have to tell my friends, my community, because this conference started out in Saskatoon. And it was such a healing conference. And then it spread to San Diego, where we were among the Kumeyaay people. And now it's here within Daneta, within the Four Sacred Mountains. And I cannot even believe that I'm still part of this process. And I truly believe that if you're really honest and so just wanting to change yourself and acknowledge what you've been through, your life will go into full circle. In a sense, like really acknowledging and representing the Four Sacred Mountains, because I had no idea that the conference would be here and my family would be in the background and they would be here supporting me. So it's very beautiful, a very beautiful feeling. But I guess I just first wanted to say that I'm honored to be part of this conference. I think my prayers ran deep long time ago when my ancestors prayed for healing, for true healing. And I believe that because I also wasn't right in my mind, my body, my spirit, my voice, but I'm here. And I truly believe that my prayers and my ancestors' prayers were heard. So I wanted to start off with a dream that I had a couple years ago. And so if you all can just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and I'll share this dream with all of you. I remember watching myself praying around a fire. There were other shadows in support surrounding the fire. Some were wearing their Pendleton blankets. I was praying with cedar. It was dark and cool, refreshing, crisp. I remember as I was standing there watching this happen, we were in the direction of the east. I do not know if this was done in the early morning or in the evening time, but when I woke, I felt very calm, and the dream was very surreal and beautiful, an acknowledgement from the natural world. Nijone, 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 Nijone. I am on the right path where I am meant to be. Kek'e Hashchin has come, and it is me. And I share this, you can all open your eyes now, but I share this dream because I know that we all have a sense of spirituality. I know we all have a sense of identity. You all are meant to be here. I'm meant to be here. But sometimes I feel like our past has really just kind of misled us into different areas, maybe made us somewhat confused, maybe even questioned ourselves. So I just share this dream because it is an acknowledgement from the spiritual world, from the natural world. And I really just honor that. I'm so humbled to share that dream, because before I had this dream, like I was saying earlier, I was really into chaos and confusion and loss, etc., etc. But once I had this dream, I knew that I was on a path of Kek'e Hashchin. And that term, I learned it in the Hogan, and I learned it from a very wise, beautiful elder. And he too had a very rough and tough life. But he was like, Anya, you and your family will rise and you will go forward carrying this message of the Kek'e Hashchin. And it's a beautiful way of being, a beautiful way of going about life. So I honor that, and I always take words and dreams very humbly. So with that, I just kind of wanted to share a story with all of you. And I was telling some family that I share this story other places, other communities, and I'm okay talking about it because I know that the other communities are elsewhere. It's in another state, it's not home. But I share this now because I'm here and I want to raise this awareness. And I share it with strength and courage, because it's a dark story, but yet I'm here to tell it. So back in high school, I was really into drugs and alcohol. And my dad can tell you, I took off one night, so he had to come and find me, and late into the night. And my dad has PTSD, so it was a major trigger for him to come after me. But just doing those types of behaviors and things like that, no, I had no sense in a way. But it was in high school, and I went to parties a lot, and I'm so thankful nothing happened to me during these parties, just because they were in the middle of nowhere, no cell reception, nothing. But I remember one night where we were at a friend's place, a friend's trailer, and this friend I've known for a couple years, and we were all there, and soon enough, the alcohol, the drugs had disappeared. We were all pretty much out. So my friend came to me and she was just like, Anya, there's a girl in another room. Can you take care of her? Can you watch her? Can you protect her? And already I had been drinking, so I just kind of nodded my head and I was like, okay, but in my mind, I didn't really know what I was trying to do. And she was just saying that we're gonna leave and we'll be back. So I was like, okay. And so I was in another room with another male friend, and I don't know how long time had passed, but I realized that I realized soon enough, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go check on this girl. So I got up and I went out the door and I was walking down the hallway. And right then I just realized there was a lot of men at this party. There was a lot of boys at this party. There was a lot of relatives at this party, and they're not here. The young boys who were riding around, the uncles who were riding around, the relatives who were talking and drinking whatever. So in that moment, I ran to the door where the girl was behind, and I heard all this noise and this commotion, and I tried to unlock the door, but it was locked. And I could hear all these men talking, all these boys laughing and making all of this noise. And I realized that in that moment, that girl was in there too. So, with all of my strength and all of my courage, I knocked on that door, I kicked on it, I screamed, I yelled. I have no idea what I was talking. I don't know what I was saying. But finally, they just opened it just a little bit. And that just a little bit of openness, I stuck my foot in there. And they were still trying to get the door closed. They were still trying to shut me out that door. But it took every piece of strength in me to finally get that door down. And I was able to get the door open. And there was a girl laying there, and she was naked, and the other men, the other boys, the young boys, pulling up their pants, condoms everywhere, and they just looked at me. But I just told them to get the fuck out. I told them to I have no idea what I said to them, but I remember I said those words. And I was screaming at them. I think I was just like hitting them. I don't even remember what I was doing. But one by one, they picked up their pants they kind of just like joked and stuff, but they all had this face. And I remember the uncles, the relatives, the young boys who were all there. And so they all left the room one by one. So then I went to that girl and I just covered her. I hugged her. And she was still kind of out of it, and she was asking me, Anya, what happened? And in my mind, I had heard stories about this girl, that she was easy, that she was always available to men, to girls, to whatever. So in my mind, that was there. So in a way, I was comforting her, but at the same time, I was getting after her. And I still feel that sense of forgiveness to forgive that part of me to this day. And I have no idea what had happened after that. I just remember comforting her for a while. But for some reason, I don't remember what had happened after that day. But a few weeks later, I got this call that I didn't know. And it was this girl. And she had told me that that night she got pregnant. And she was at the abortion clinic right at that moment. And I don't even remember what my response was to her. And I share this story because for a long time, I was always afraid to come back home to the res, come back home to my community. Because I knew, my spirit knew, my body knew that one day I would come and face this young boy, this cousin, this uncle, this father, this grandfather. And I think I was telling my family that I've been through a lot of crazy stuff. And I think that was just the last straw that my spirit could take. So I left home. I left home for college. I left home to travel. I left home to do all these different things. And up until recently, a couple years ago, when I truly acknowledge my self-worth, my forgiveness, my identity, I knew in the Sweat Lodge out in Sakatone that it was time for me to return home. Was time for me to return home within our 4 sacred mountains and be strong, be courageous, share this message. And I also share this message because I know those young boys, those young dads, the uncles, they are not bad men. They also, I'm sure, have experienced some type of abuse in their lives as well. And I have no right to judge them, to get after them, to call them names. I know now that if anything, they need that love and acceptance and healing. And if anything, healing has gotten me so far and has made me realize how valuable we all are as Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. And I think through the Hogan, the Sweat Lodge, through prayers, through really acknowledging my family, my sisters, my community, I realized that how precious and how vital we are. And like Tammy was saying, we have no right to say, oh, this person's on substance abuse, oh, this person's in prison. That's not our way of teaching. That's not our way to go about life. That's not my way of getting after someone, because they also have their stories to share. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't have the opportunity to give them that ear to share their story. So I'm glad that you all are here and hearing my story. And so with that, I just wanted to share a few things that have really helped me to get to just be this this person who has come full circle in a way, and that is to really acknowledge the four directions: your mental, your mindful, the east direction, the south, the physical, the discipline, the west, emotional ties, to really acknowledge the natural world, the empathy that you have, north, the spiritual side of you, reflection of the day, sleep, and also know that we are all cedar carriers and fire keepers in our own way. And I always say this, I think I said this during the first conference that we have, but I think as Indigenous people, I just really want to say that it's okay to cry. It's okay to release your emotions, to talk about things. And a lot of the times I always hear, just be quiet, just, toughen up. But I always say that's wrong, because your body is expressing itself. So I really encourage that. And lastly, I just want to say how a lot of this information is very important, and it's amazing how this information is being shared. But I really encourage all of you to take breaks, to take a deep breath, to go outside, to reflect, to process, to communicate, because I know that I still kind of like get bothered, or some memories kind of get popped up. So I just really encourage you to take care of yourselves too during this time, and just know that we're all here for a reason. So yeah, thank you for your time.
And thank you for sharing, Anya. I just want to add really quick what she shared, being as her older sister. That story particularly, she went through different therapists and who couldn't really help her, and she had somatic symptoms as a child, and with her stomach always hurting. We couldn't figure out what was the concern, but I think because of her bullying, Anya was bullied at a young age too, and that really, so all of this developed when she was young, and so what she shared came from the Hogan. It came through ceremony. It was through medicine, through tobacco smoking, and family that she was able to share, and she kept throwing up. We're like, she's not throwing up anything, and she'd just go in the living room, and we'd have a conversation, and she'd run back out. She probably ran back 100 times, I don't know, but it was just a lot of that coming out of her that she suppressed for years and never shared with us. And so I'm so grateful through ceremony, that was her start of her healing process in family. And we were there in the Hogan with her when she shared her story with us. And everything started to come into place, and as a family, And so Shadeja is very brave, So thank you, Anya, for your wisdom and your courage to continue sharing and healing with us. So, yeah, love you, sister.
Nice.
Okay, cool. Marlene.
Yate, shidne. Ya Marlon White, Yeshia, Twitchini, Nashlan Sanjikina, Boshichin, Hanagani, Shiche, Twitzoni, Dashanale. My name is Marlon White, and I'm originally on my mom's side, originally from Mexican Springs, New Mexico. My grandma's sitting right here with me, and I'm happy that she's here to attend, to hear me speak. Feels good. And then also on my dad's side, from White Cone, Arizona, my other grandma's sitting here with me too, so it feels good to be in their presence again. I just want to greet everyone in a good way this morning. Thank you for coming here. I feel really blessed to be here. My story is about my journey of sobriety and finding myself again. I reside in Phoenix, Arizona right now, and I currently work for the Phoenix Indian Medical Center for the Indian Health Service. And I deal with a lot of people in my profession who are elders, adults, young children, who are in our community in Phoenix who are in need, whether it be healthcare, mental health, behavioral health, traditional help. A lot of them out there where I reside at is in the urban setting in the city. And I deal with a lot of these patients out there, and it seems like a lot of these Navajos down there, they get forgotten about. They need help, and, they feel lost. I see people every day when I go to work, they're on the street, homeless, walking on the street, intoxicated or passed out. And it really hurts my heart to see my own people like that, And it's hard to see that, but I know dealing with alcohol and drug addiction recovery myself, you have to have the change within you to make that change. So with myself, my story, I mentioned where I come from, but at the same time, I grew up in this area, in Fort Defiance, Window Rock area. A lot of people know who I am. And I also grew up in Phoenix. So my life was reservation and city life. That was my mentality as growing up. And when you're a person like that, you have a lot of conflict with yourself because, you have your traditional side, your way of being raised, your beliefs, and then you have to go to the city and you have culture shock, trying to find your identity again, trying to maintain those values. Myself, when I was young, I was raised, through Native American church and traditional values. That's how I was brought up through my grandpa, Kenneth White Sr. And he taught a real good thing to all of my relatives is, having that faith, belief in God. And myself, as a young person, I tried to do that, but I drifted away. And I got consumed in alcohol and drugs. And, it's hard to talk about your life, hard to talk about things like this. I go to other speaking engagements and I talk about my story. And it's hard to share personal things about yourself. It's not easy. So forgive me, sometimes, things that I may say or it gets emotional. But in our community here in Fort Defiance, Window Rock, all of you know it. Alcohol is a big problem. Drugs, meth, domestic violence, gangs, things like that. It all it stems from our roots. Like we talk about historical trauma. A lot of us, we live with, shame, guilt, fear, anger in our roots. And as we continue on in our life, it manifests in alcoholism, sexual abuse, domestic violence, suicide, things like that. So when you see people who are struggling with that, it's hard to really understand, where they come from because they have those things that they hide. Maybe myself, maybe I have shame, maybe I have guilt, maybe I'm fearful at times. That's how I thought about myself. So my story, basically, how I mentioned a lot of people know me is because I do music. I do native hip hop music, which is rap music. And I had a group here from Window Rock. We won the Native American Music Awards for Best Album of the Year in 2003. We had a real dynamic group. We traveled the country. We did a lot of things. And we're the only Navajo group who's ever won that award. I have that award sitting at my house. But it's great, to have that acknowledgement. But at the same time, behind the scenes, what manifested in my life was drinking, smoking, doing drugs, traveling to bars, to clubs, performing. And like I said, I drifted away from my traditional way of how I was raised. And I created this music. And my music has always been positive. It's never been about materialism, money, greed, sex, things like that. It's never been about that. But in my own life, I was living that way. So I was a contradiction to what I was doing. And for so many years, I got consumed in that. And we traveled the country. I performed for a lot of major artists that you see on TV, kind of emulated that culture in a sense. And, you know, it really affected me through money, alcohol, women, consumed my life. I lost a lot of good people. Some were good, some were bad. But through this process, when I would go to these places out of town, I would always miss my home place. I would always miss my family. And sometimes when I was drunk, I would pray. And I would think, you know, I need to find a better way to live. And I always had this voice in my head. This voice would tell me, like, Marlon, you know what's right. You shouldn't be doing this. You don't belong here. And if you keep doing this, you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose all of this if you keep doing this. But I didn't listen to that voice in my head. And come to find out, you know, that voice in my head was God. God was speaking to me. And I didn't listen. So, you know, I continued to live that lifestyle. And I got in trouble with the law. I got in trouble with the law. I got some DUIs. I went to jail. And I really did some soul searching. And it was true. I kept doing that lifestyle, and I lost everything. I lost the group that we won the awards for. I lost a good relationship. I lost good friends. I lost connection with my family. I lost connection with myself. I became really depressed in my life. Even though I was putting on this image in front of people, all these people would come and I would perform, just like you guys are here now, just like these lights here. I would do that. And yes, it would make me happy, but drugs and alcohol were like a crutch to me for happiness. I thought that I needed to be happy to be high or drunk, which is, it's really sad to say, you know. I never thought, you know, I would make it out of that. But I lost all of that because I didn't listen to that voice. So I ended up in jail. I was in Tent City. I got my first DUI, and then I had a good friend of mine, and we used to do that together. And he was a real good friend of mine. And then when I got out, my first time, it was just a slap on the wrist for me. I didn't really pay attention. So a week later, I got my second one. Oh man, I was so devastated. How could I do that to myself? I wasn't raised like that. Why did I do that? And this friend of mine, he was a good person. We just had a problem with our addiction that we didn't realize. So in the process, I recorded these albums. I recorded an album and basically about my life. It was full of kind of like anger and resentment in a way. I needed to release that. That was my therapy. It still is my therapy. But when I was in jail, I made this prayer to God, like, help me, take me away from this. I was in Tent City. It was hot. And you get treated really bad in there. And I was there in the summertime. I did 90 days there. And I was on house arrest. I had an ankle bracelet. And I was ashamed. I almost lost my job. Thank God my boss was understanding. But I told God to take me away from there. At the same time, the album I had created got nominated in New York for Best Album of the Year again. I was so happy, but I couldn't do nothing because I was in jail. And I had to print out these little flyers for people to vote for me. Navajo Nation Parade was going on. I had all my family passing out these flyers, but I didn't know. I couldn't do nothing because I was in jail. I felt so bad. But I knew the day I got out of jail, I was going to fly to New York City, or New York, the city of New York, state of New York. They had the award ceremony up there. And we flew up there. And I got nominated, but I didn't win. I was kind of like, wow, why didn't I win? But God didn't want me to win. He wanted me to repair my life. So I went back to school. I went to Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado. I wanted to get away from Phoenix. So I went back to school there, and I had been going to college prior here and there. I just never finished. So I went to a new place, and I really enjoyed it, and I began to find myself again. And going to school there, I met new people, and I really enjoyed going back to school. I got my business degree, business administration in 2011, and I felt really happy because I did something for myself that I always wanted. And, you know, I kind of went in a new direction. And going back to school was the best thing I ever did for myself. It sharpened me as a person, sharpened me as, you know, my personal self, opened up more doors for me, helped me to communicate better with people, and just be more professional in my way of life. So I ended up looking for a job again, and I didn't want to go back to Phoenix, but I went back to Phoenix. I tried to apply here at Navajo Nation, but they said, you're not qualified. And I was like, wow, how am I not qualified? I have a degree. I couldn't even get an interview. So that was really frustrating. A lot of young people deal with that. We want to come home to have jobs here, but it's hard. So I had to go back down to the valley. So long story short, I went back and I got hired with the IHS. And I was starting to get back on my feet, and I started drinking again. And that voice was talking to me again in my head. Marlon, you know better. You shouldn't be doing this. And I caught my third DUI. Oh, man. The second was bad. The third, it was devastating. After all that progress I went through, it just really made me go into depression. I felt like ending my life, honestly. I did. And I battled with these emotions for so long, but I'd said that prayer again. You know, I couldn't do it on my own. I had to surrender myself to a higher power, to God, to help me. So I had some traditional ceremonies done for me. I had a Native American church service done for me. And I really meant it. I needed to change. I had to stop. So in that prayer service, you know, it was the time to do the main smoke. My uncle, he ran that for me. He said, say something for yourself before you pray. And I had all this guilt and anger in me. It was real stressful. And all I asked, my grandma, my grandpa, my late grandpa was sitting there, and I looking at him. I remember when I was 5 years old, he was praying for me at that time. And he was still there, sitting there, singing, supporting me, still there. Out of all these friends I had, this lifestyle I had, my grandpa was still there, my grandma, my mom, my dad, my other relatives. So what I said was, forgive me. Forgive me. I asked that fireplace, forgive me. I had to forgive myself. It was really hard. I asked my grandparents, forgive me. I don't want this in my life no more. I had to change. And I really meant it, and I still mean it to this day. So since that time when I walked out of that TP, when I had traditional medicine man help, it made me really focus to live my prayer, to believe, to have faith in God. So since that day, my sobriety birthday is March 5th. So today I'm celebrating 750 days, 2 years and 1 month of sobriety. I haven't picked it up. So faith in God is what helped me. And what has also helped me too is I've been into AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've also been into this Wellbriety, the Red Road to Wellbriety. I really want to encourage people to take a look into this. Wellbriety is a really good movement. It's like AA, but it encompasses a Native American way, a perspective, a spiritual way to approach it. You do steps, you analyze yourself, and it's prayer, it's ceremony, it's sweat lodge, it's understanding our elders, it's understanding our warrior spirit, reconnecting. That's what I've been doing, like I said, finding myself, that spiritual connection. So I'm happy to say I'm moving forward. I want to help our people in the community, my friends. I see them dying. My best friend that I talked about earlier, he died. And, you know, I have another friend here in the audience too. He told me, hey, bro, I'm 5 years sober. Good. Made me feel good too. There's other brothers out there that are doing it. So I'm happy to say that. So, you know, I'm moving forward. I'm educating myself. And I went to Portland to the Well Body Conference. I've been at San Diego. I've been at the Kumeyaay Reservation. I participated in the Strong Heart Walk. I perform music over there. Really good people out there. San Diego, California, they really support each other. They support each other. That's how I want our people to be. We don't need to hate or talk or be jealous. Let's support each other. We can do it. So I just want to end now. Like I said, I do music. I'm trying to do more positive music. I'm working on my 5th album, and I'm not doing it drunk or high. I'm doing it with a sober mind. So I wrote this poem here. It's called God's Plan. And if you could bear along with me, this is God's plan, what he had for me. It says, how can I say this? It's so amazing how I made it. Turned my life around, and now I'm feeling so elated. Seems like there was nothing, but that nothing turned to something. All I needed was God in me to see my time was coming. I suffered through some setbacks, and the struggle needed help. I was locked up in that cell, but I could only blame myself. How could I waste the life I'm living? In my mind was like a prison. Had to break up out them chains, for what I needed was forgiveness. What really matters in this life? Did it take my best friend to die to make me realize? I was headed down that road, and on that road, no coming back. So I changed up my direction and just hope he understands. This road is hard, never easy, and still so new to me. Reminded every day of what I used to be. Even though at times I doubted, screamed and shouted, walked away, you were always right there with me to bless me every day. No more stressing, no depression, no more feelings of aggression, because now I realize all them hard times was a lesson. Indeed, a change was needed, starting a new path. Time to put away my past and ignore the fools who laugh. I'm thankful for this light in my life. I see you working. Use me as your servant and fill my life with purpose. That's God's plan. Yes. And I just want to say, I'm happy to be here, and I'm respect all my elders, and you know, I just want to keep learning. And for all the younger people, for anyone, plant a seed, just like I did. Plant a seed towards something great. Why? Because you're worth it. You're worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlon. Now we have Richard Tullywood from Gallup, New Mexico.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Richard Tullywood Jr. Touching Sloan, Jenjikin Basichin, Hawa Sloan Chichi, Gloss Janilla, Janesle. I'm from Gallup, New Mexico. Born and raised there. Yes, I've been helping my family out, and they've been helping me out in this way. I consider this a big healing for myself. I've been battling my alcoholism and drug abuse for over 39 years. 54 years young. I'm glad to be on this young panel. Consider young, even though I got a few left. Anywho, I'm not married. I don't have any kids, probably why I feel this way. But there's always a substitute in the way of making yourself, with this traumatic history and traumatic childhood history. I endured all that. First of all, traumatic history, what I'm enduring right now is speaking this foreign language I'm talking to you right now. That's my traumatic history right here. Because I grew up in the cities. I grew up in Phoenix. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Kansas City, San Francisco, Gallup, New Mexico. And I was raised here on the res in Fort Defiance area at one time, but I did that back and forth. I always consider my life like a gypsy. We'll set up camp, next you know, next day, pop tent, and we have to go again. That was my life. Every time something would happen in my home, whether it be domestic violence, racism, jobs, some kind of, really was domestic violence and alcohol that was the real key point in my childhood trauma. The abusive language, as the doctor was talking earlier, how you're put down, you're stupid, you're just like your dad, things of that nature, and you didn't know why, you know. And then you felt odd. Then to top it off, you go to school and the kids over there are talking down on you because you're Native American. You're Navajo, you dirty Indian, you stinking Indian. Fight every day. I had to fight every day to go to school, protect my little brothers. That was in Gallup, New Mexico. I fought the whites and the Mexicans. That was my life until 6th grade, until I moved to the higher stage, which was the cities. That's where I was introduced to gang life. Never knew what gang life was until I was beat up by 10 guys in Phoenix Union High School. I remember we were going through there, we were doing a tour, and we were from an elementary school moving up to a high school. In that little tour, that's when I got jumped, because I was Native American. Thereafter that, it was that type of life. You watch your back, you watch your back. You always had weapons behind your door. But one thing I'm grateful that I never got was a gun. I never owned a gun or a weapon like that. Because I was told from my uncle that came back from Vietnam, he said, the only reason why you have a gun is to take a life. I said, wow, okay. So that stuck in my mind. That kind of logic at 5, 6 years old, carry that around all your life. And that was my security. And throughout my life, I had that code of the gangs. You don't say anything, you don't snitch, you don't do this, you don't do that. You know, that's one thing. The same way in jails. I'm very thankful I never went to prison. I always expected myself to go to prison, but I never did. I only got as far as a high A misdemeanor. But with all that in hand, you know, there's a good side to all this. The healing, we were talking about. The traditional healing and also the Christianity healing. That's what I was brought in. My family was part of Christianity, Bible, and also with the traditional healing. And that was another thing. I had to choose. Is there a choice? Which is good? Which is bad? You know, it confused me. So I just went along. Just jumped in the wagon and went along for the ride and learned everything. Learned from the 10 Commandments to our clan-wise and what not to do in our traditional ways. And that's how I learned. But I had kept going back and forth, city life, traditional, city life. I remember one time in my 9th grade year, my mom couldn't handle me in Phoenix because I was drinking a lot. I started drinking at age 15. And I just recently stopped at 2013. My sobriety date is April 29th, 2013. I'm coming up on 6 years. So it does work if you really have your heart to it. And if you gone through enough crap in your life where you can't handle it no more, you don't want it no more. Right now, I'm suffering from a traumatic brain injury. That's why it's really hard for me to talk at times because of my motor skills in my mouth and my brain. When I walk too, I'm really unstable. My equilibrium's off. All because I was high on meth and vodka. I did a bad fall and hit my head. I had a 50-50 chance. They flew me out of here. I happened here, right up the road at my dad's place. and they flew me to Flagstaff. And I didn't know what happened. Next you know, I was healing, 2012. I went back to Albuquerque, and again, I started drinking again. Even with all that happened, that's how powerful this stuff is. It's cunning, baffling, and very powerful. So that's what I figured out through the Western way. So with my healing, I did both aspects, the Western way and traditional way. I needed real help. That's why I chose both ways. I didn't care whether that's bad, that's good, that's bad. I said, I don't care. This is my life. I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. Makes me feel better, empowers me. I know I'm doing something. I'm not leaving anything out. That's the way I thought to myself. But there was always something I left out. And one of those was my honesty to myself. That was my downfall. I would build this grandiose, beautiful house, and I walk up with a lighter and I just torch it. Watch that whole beautiful thing go down. I did that with my education. I got as far as my associate degree in social work. I found out alcohol and education don't mix. Like my uncle was saying, I prayed in that teepee. I was blessed with an educated mind to do that type of work, social work. The empathy was in my heart to do that. But somewhere down the line, there was no honesty in the back of my mind until I found out the hard way with this TBI and also not making it to my mother's funeral because I was sitting in jail in Cortez, Colorado for my 5th DUI. I was on the verge of getting a felony. At that time, they hadn't implemented 5 DUIs as a felony. Now, if you get 6, you do 10 years. So if I ever get one more, I'm going for 10 years. Boom. No questions asked. So with that, I had to heal. I wanted to heal because I got tired of the way I felt. And the way I could do that, I had to ask God. And how I had to ask that? I had to ask my family. And I knew who would help me and how would they help me. Because they had that unconditional love. They had it when I was young until now I'm a man. But they forgave me and they helped me. That's why I'm sitting here talking to you. The way I did it was I did through the Native American Church. First of all, I went through AA. That first year I went, I made sure I didn't drink for that first year. So I went to that meeting. I had 1 year sober, and thereafter that, I knew I could handle that medicine. Thereafter that, I talked about this truth, being truthful. I talked to that fireplace. And he said, you better be truthful. And you know how it told me? Because when you eat that medicine, it's at times, it can be tough if you don't have the right heart for it. If you go in there with a bad heart and you feel you're not able to handle it, it will tell you. And it told me. So instead of running out into the dark and letting it all out by vomiting, sometimes we do that. And I was told when you do that, you're hiding something. And I didn't believe that. So I used to do that a lot. So this time I said, this is for real. I'm serious about my sobriety. I'm going to do this. Whatever happens tonight, I'm going to follow that fireplace. Sure enough, that time came. I got on my fours. Boom, I let her out in front of everybody. It was embarrassing, a shame. I felt ashamed and embarrassed. But so for some reason, that courage, that faith kicked into me. Thereafter that, everything was cleared up. They say in the AA that clarity, that happened for me that night. Thereafter that, I have never had a taste for alcohol anymore, drugs. I don't think about it. I live in Gallup, New Mexico. I see it everywhere. You know, now I look at my people out there, our people. I want to help them. I try not to say, get away from me. I got no money for you. I just tell them, I'm sober. I can't give you any money. I know what you're going to do with it. The honesty behind this. I try to use it as much as I can in my life because it helps me heal in myself, to look at myself in the mirror every morning, every day, telling myself, today, Richard, you're not going to use alcohol, drugs, or anything that will alter your mind to help others and yourself. Tell yourself that every day, and I pray that every day. So I'm very, very thankful for this program, this warrior spirit, because when I read it every day on my wall, I tell myself, we're going to go out today, try to help somebody. Be somebody to somebody. Be a protector. I got my little friend sitting right there, Rolinda Yazzie. She had a traumatic brain injury. I try to help her as much as I can because she has a lack of resources. She's still young, but I try to teach her to understand that alcohol and drugs is not the way. There's another way, which is through faith, Christ, traditional way. Whatever will help you get close to our Creator. He will guide you and take care of you. See what He did to me? I'm not going to question it anymore. I said, as long as He takes care of me and helps me, He's able. I wrote everything down here. And I told myself, my dad always said, be original. Don't copy anybody else. So I looked at it and I said, I'm just going to go by my heart. Because when I look at this, I just confuse myself. I said, what am I losing? Where am I at? Wow. You know, you just make yourself look a little more goofy, you know. So I said, no, just leave it alone. Just talk from your heart and what really is going on in your life, because you're at home. So right now, I'm very thankful to be in Windrock, like Gallup, this area. But going out to San Diego, the Kumeyaay Reservation, that was beautiful. Going to Sagatone was beautiful. I've been asked to go. You know, that was a big part of my healing right there. Just to be asked. Wow. I said, I mean something. Just like throwing a $20 bill away. Somebody looks at, hey, somebody threw a $20 bill away. Look at it. Hey, clean it up. It's still good. All right. That's what I feel sometimes. That's what my uncle did to me. So I'm very thankful for his staff that helps him a lot. I'm very, very thankful for him. You guys, his backup, and he does vice versa. My nephew here, I'm very proud of him. These young ladies coming up on stage, talking about their lives. Sometimes it takes a lot of courage to come up there and talk about your life like this. You open it. Oh, is that what happens? Oh, okay. Then you look at yourself and say, maybe that happened to me. Oh, yeah, I understand. Okay. But sometimes we don't know how to deal with it. Now, maybe we give you a little answer how to deal with it. Just look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'll be truthful to myself today and to my kids. Thank you. I'm Richard Tallery.
Good one, Uncle. Thank you. Good one.